Cook County State's Attorney's Office tonight denying reports that there is an investigation underway to find an accomplice to the murders of those 27 people, their bodies found at the home of John Gacy. Those reports are being spurred by statements of Jeff Rignall, who says Gacy drugged and sexually molested him at the Gacy home. Gacy himself scheduled to appear tomorrow in court to face the charges in connection with the Rignall case, but it's doubtful that he will be in court. The ramifications of the mass murder tonight continue to spread even to people totally unrelated to Gacy, his house, or those he had dealings with. The sad effects now reaching into Chicago's community of clowns.
For hundreds of people in the Chicago area who use the grease paint, costumes, and antics of a clown, this picture in the Chicago Tribune came as a shock. It was a publicity picture John Gacy used in his sometime role as an entertainer of children. Now, clown organizations say their image has been damaged with guilt by association. These are members of the Clown Guild of Metropolitan Chicago, better known by such names as Snappy Happy, Wacko, Ho-Ho, and Me Too. Pictures show them in action doing what they love, making youngsters laugh. Even a tiny smile will make their day. Sometimes they are paid for their work. Often they perform at no charge for charity. But now, the first question people ask is, did they know and work with John Gacy?
We have checked the national organization, which is Clowns of America, the Shriner organization, a number of the organizations within the Chicago area. And after checking with these people, we found that he is not now, nor has ever been, a member or associated with any of these organizations within this area.
The public might be wondering how they can avoid a person with questionable character coming out to a party. What would be some of the ways that you could guarantee the type of people that you're coming out would be reputable?
I believe the main thing would be to, if they're going to get a clown, is to get an organization such as the Vagabond Clowns or Clowns Metropolitan Chicago, Nairobi Clown Troupe, an organization that has a number of members, and that way they can pick from those members.
The Clown Guild wanted their story told not because they fear economic loss, but because of the apprehension they sense from the public. And tonight they offer insight into John Gacy by analyzing the way he put on his clown makeup. They say the lines forming his mouth are not rounded, but pointed, giving a harsh, mean look. Only a true clown could notice that.
Chicago police may have passed over crucial clues in the mass murder investigation. Details on these stories and others next on Eyewitness News.
A $6 million lawsuit has been filed against mass murder suspect John Gacy. Parents of slain teenager John Butkovich hope to be awarded proceeds from any publications about the Gacy case. They also want any funds from the alleged killer's contracting firm. Tonight, Jay Levine continues his close-up look at the Gacy case and how police may have overlooked evidence that could have prevented the murder spree.
A careful examination of police and other official documents by Eyewitness News reveals that John Gacy came into contact with authorities more than half a dozen times, allegedly involved in crimes ranging from kidnapping to rape and assault. His name came up in connection with missing persons. He was even linked to a theft committed with the car of one of his victims. These police contacts came not with unrelated, relatively unsophisticated suburban departments, but with one of the biggest, best equipped and trained departments in the world. Even so, using the same combination of bluff and bluster with which he talked his way into being photographed with dignitaries, Gacy managed to talk his way out of each and every beef. Said one former employee, he had a way of getting what he wanted. He was a master con man.
And he was good. I mean, he got whatever he wanted, you know. He did what he had to do to get what he wanted. That was his philosophy.
In August of 1975, Johnny Butkovich's car was found abandoned at Lawrence and Sheridan. The 18-year-old's jacket, wallet, and keys inside. The last time his parents saw him, he was leaving to confront John Gacy about some back pay.
And this youth police, he told me, he talked with the Gacy refused to talk to him. And he should know right away something wrong. If Gacy don't want to talk to him, something wrong right there.
Area 6 youth officers considered Butkovich a runaway. Youth Division officers from Areas 5 and 6 were out looking for John Gacy again 5 months later. Responding to reports of a man named John cruising the uptown area picking up young boys, they followed him for over a month, questioned youths going in and out of his Norwood Park Township home, and came up empty. Later that year, Taft High School senior Greg Godzik disappeared just after telling his girlfriend that 1976 had been the best year of his life. His mother told Area 5 youth officers to check out the man Greg had worked for, John Gacy, and then called Gacy herself.
I talked to him. I called him up to find out if my Gregory called. And he said he did, and that he was going to come to work. And I said, well, did he ever come? He says, no. And I says, how do you know it was Gregory? And he says, because he had him on his tape, you know. And I asked him if he could play it back. He said, no, he erased it, so I wouldn't know.
Did you ever tell the police about your conversation with John Gacy?
Yes, I'm sure I did.
Police would have had no way of tying Gacy to a 19-year-old who disappeared barely a month later, except we've learned that this time he got careless, taking and then selling John Zick's 1971 Plymouth Satellite to Mike Rossi. Gacy and Rossi, other employees say, were like father and son. In December, Rossi was brought to the house on Summerdale to point out the location of holes he admitted digging in the crawl space. He claims to know nothing about the bodies. It was Rossi's failing to pay for a tank full of gas in September of 1977 that brought police to Gacy's home once again. He and Rossi straightened out the beef about the gas, and in the process, convinced police to close the Zick missing person file. This letter was sent to Zick's parents. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Zick, I was unable to locate your son, but I did learn that he sold his auto in February of 1977 and told the buyer that he needed the money to leave town. But no one seems to be able to explain why, if Zick needed money, he left behind 2 paychecks, all his possessions, and even bought new license plates for the car the day he disappeared. Had Chicago police bothered to check, as we did, the original title to Zick's car, note the signature, and compared it to the title transfer filed when the car was allegedly sold by Zick to Gacy and Rossi, again note Zick's signature, it would have been obvious to them that something was fishy. John Zick did not sign the second time, 18 days after he was reported missing. He was undoubtedly already dead. Area 6 homicide sex officers in the state's attorney's office also took Gacy's word against that of the teenager he allegedly abducted at gunpoint near Lawrence and Western in December. During that assault, the 19-year-old youth tells me, Gacy bragged of having killed others. He claims he told all this to police.
In light of
Jeff Rignall told a similar story 3 months later. He succeeded in having Gacy arrested last summer, but it was while that case was pending, Gacy free on bond, that Des Plaines teenager Rob Peace disappeared and set in motion the chain of events that led to the gruesome discovery of bodies in Gacy's basement.
Police not does good job for my son, not for the rest of those kids. If they follow those things, investigation, maybe Johnny only be dead. Only Johnny, maybe rest will be unalive. Rest of they don't have to be dead.
We requested an interview with Chicago Police Superintendent James O'Grady, a man who's known to be quite upset about police handling of the Gacy case. The request was denied. O'Grady said any comment on his part would be improper and in violation of a gag order imposed by a circuit court judge. In the meantime, we've also learned that 3 former Gacy associates are still under investigation for their involvement in or knowledge of the assaults and murders. One of them, Mike Rossi, will be ordered to hand over handwriting samples in connection with a forged title transfer. Rossi, sources say, has already hired former State's Attorney Ed Hanrahan to represent him. Jay Levine, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Well, I'm John Gacy. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa.
And you're a man of some authority here. What is your title?
Well, I'm first cook in the kitchen, and I run the morning meal and the afternoon meal in the kitchen.
John, how long have you been here?
I've been here now a year and about 2 weeks.
Why am I asking how long do you plan to take up residence here?
Well, I hope to be getting out sometime in May.
Well, good. You're going to continue as a cook, use that as a profession?
Right. This is my profession before I came in.
All right.
Food service.
Well, now, how about Christmas time? You do anything special for the guys? What are you planning for old Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, for example?
Well, Christmas Eve, the food service department, under the direction of Mr. John Breimer, will prepare stockings that we hand out. Well, actually, they're paper bags that'll have fruit, an apple and an orange, and a box of Bridge Mix candy. Mm-hmm. And this is all from the staff here. They donate this. Then in the cell houses at night, on Christmas Eve, we will serve cookies and hot chocolate to the men in the cell houses. This is around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Then come Christmas Day, we serve a regular traditional Christmas dinner.
Now tell us about that. What's that going to be this year?
This is quite a meal. This will be roast whole turkey. We use 25 whole turkeys that are approximately 540 pounds of turkey that we fix. We start preparing this on the day before. This is all prepared by inmates, and there's 9 cooks under my direction and under the supervision of several supervisors that are assigned to the food area. Along with that, we'll make up 10 baked pans, large baking pans of oyster dressing. We use 8 gallons of oyster in that.
Man alive.
And we use the giblets and everything so it doesn't go to waste and make a nice giblet gravy. We'll have candied sweet potatoes and use about 36 gallons of that. And so that they have a choice of potato, we make up 250 pounds of mashed potatoes to go along with it. Along with that, we'll use some 60 pounds of mixed vegetables to serve a mixed vegetable as the second vegetable on the line. We'll have 50 pounds of cranberry sauce made up. And we'll make up a Waldorf salad. And our Waldorf salad is your walnut meats. And we use fresh marshmallows, fresh green grapes, and fruit cocktail, and make up our own whipped cream topping with it. We sometimes go through as much as 45 gallons of this on the line. The men, with the exception of the turkey, which they get a generous proportion of, and the pumpkin pie that will be served, are allowed to take as much as they want to eat. Well, I'm John Gacy. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa.
And you're a man of some authority here. What is your title?
Well, I'm first cook in the kitchen, and I run the morning meal and the afternoon meal in the kitchen.
John, how long have you been here?
I've been here now a year and about 2 weeks.
Why am I asking how long do you plan to take up residence here?
Well, I hope to be getting out sometime in May.
Well, good. You're going to continue as a cook, use that as a profession?
Right. This is my profession before I came in.
All right.
Food service.
Well, now, how about Christmas time? You do anything special for the guys? What are you planning for old Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, for example?
Well, Christmas Eve, the food service department, under the direction of Mr. John Breimer, will prepare stockings that we hand out. Well, actually, they're paper bags that'll have fruit, an apple and an orange, and a box of Bridge Mix candy. And this is all from the staff here. They donate this. Then in the cell houses at night on Christmas Eve, we will serve cookies and hot chocolate to the men in the cell houses. This is around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Then come Christmas Day, we serve a regular traditional Christmas dinner.
Now tell us about that. What's that going to be this year?
This is quite a meal. This will be roast whole turkey. We use 25 whole turkeys that are approximately 540 pounds of turkey that we fix. We start preparing this on the day before. This is all prepared by inmates, and there's 9 cooks under my direction and under the supervision of several supervisors that are assigned to the food area. Along with that, we'll make up 10 baked pans, large baking pans of oyster dressing. We use 8 gallons of oyster in that.
Man alive.
And we use the giblets and everything so it doesn't go to waste and make a nice giblet gravy. We'll have candied sweet potatoes and use about 36 gallons of that. And so that they have a choice of potato, we make up 250 pounds of mashed potatoes to go along with it. Along with that, we'll use some 60 pounds of mixed vegetables to serve a mixed vegetable as the second vegetable on the line. We'll have 50 pounds of cranberry sauce made up. And we'll make up a Waldorf salad. And our Waldorf salad is your walnut meats. And we use fresh marshmallows, fresh green grapes, and fruit cocktail, and make up our own whipped cream topping with it. We sometimes go through as much as 45 gallons of this on the line. The men, with the exception of the turkey, which they get a generous proportion of, and the pumpkin pie that will be served, are allowed to take as much as they want to eat. There's 25 whole turkeys that are approximately 540 pounds of turkey that we fix. We start preparing this on the day before. This is all prepared by inmates, and there's 9 cooks under my direction and under the supervision of several supervisors that are assigned to the food area. Along with that, we'll make up 10 bake pans, large baking pans of oyster dressing. We use 8 gallons of oyster in that. And we use the giblets and everything so it doesn't go to waste and make a nice giblet gravy. We'll have candied sweet potatoes and use about 36 gallons of that. And so that they have a choice of potato, we make up 250 pounds of mashed potatoes to go along with it. Along with that, we'll use some 60 pounds of mixed vegetables to serve a mixed vegetable as the second vegetable on the line. We'll have 50 pounds of cranberry sauce made up. And we'll make up a Waldorf salad. And our Waldorf salad is your walnut meats. And we use fresh marshmallows, fresh green grapes, and fruit cocktail, and make up our own whipped cream topping with it. We sometimes go through as much as 45 gallons of this on the line. The men, with the exception of the turkey, which they get a generous proportion of, and the pumpkin pie that will be served, are allowed to take as much as they want to eat. Well, I'm John Gacy. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa.
And you're a man of some authority here. What is your title?
Well, I'm first cook in the kitchen, and I run the morning meal and the afternoon meal in the kitchen.
John, how long have you been here?
I've been here now a year and about 2 weeks.
Why am I asking how long do you plan to take up residence here?
Well, I hope to be getting out sometime in May.
Well, good. You're going to continue as a cook, use that as a profession?
Right. This is my profession before I came in.
All right.
Food service.
Well, now, how about Christmas time? You do anything special for the guys? What are you planning for old Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, for example?
Well, Christmas Eve, the food service department, under the direction of Mr. John Breimer, will prepare stockings that we hand out. Well, actually, they're paper bags that'll have fruit, an apple and an orange, and a box of Bridge Mix candy. And this is all from the staff here. They donate this. Then in the cell houses at night on Christmas Eve, we will serve cookies and hot chocolate to the men in the cell houses. This is around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Then come Christmas Day, we serve a regular traditional Christmas dinner.
Now tell us about that. What's that going to be?
This is quite a meal. This will be roast whole turkey. We use 25 whole turkeys that are approximately 540 pounds of turkey that we fix. We start preparing this on the afternoon meal in the kitchen.
John, how long have you been here?
I've been here now a year and about 2 weeks.
Why am I asking how long do you plan to take up residence here?
Well, I hope to be getting out sometime in May.
Well, good. You're going to continue as a cook, use that as a profession?
Right. This is my profession before I came in.
All right.
Food service.
Well, now, how about Christmas time? You do anything special for the guys? What are you planning for old Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, for example?
Well, Christmas Eve, the food service department, under the direction of Mr. John Breimer, will prepare stockings that we hand out. Well, actually, they're paper bags that'll have fruit, an apple and an orange, and a box of Bridge Mix candy. And this is all from the staff here. They donate this. Then in the cell houses at night on Christmas Eve, we will serve cookies and hot chocolate to the men in the cell houses. This is around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Then come Christmas Day, we serve a regular traditional Christmas dinner.
Now tell us about that. What's that going to be?
This is quite a meal. This will be roast whole turkey. We use 25 whole turkeys that are approximately 540 pounds of turkey that we fix. We start preparing this on the day before. This is all prepared by inmates, and there's 9 cooks under my direction and under the supervision of several supervisors that are assigned to the food area. Along with that, we'll make up 10 bake pans, large baking pans of oyster dressing. We use 8 gallons of oyster in that. And we use the giblets and everything so it doesn't go to waste and make a nice giblet gravy. We'll have candied sweet potatoes and use about 36 gallons of that. And so that they have a choice of potato, we make up 250 pounds of mashed potatoes to go along with it. Along with that, we'll use some 60 pounds of mixed vegetables to serve a mixed vegetable as the second vegetable on the line. We'll have 50 pounds of cranberry sauce made up. And we'll make up a Waldorf salad. And our Waldorf salad is your walnut meats. And we use fresh marshmallows, fresh green grapes and fruit cocktail and make up our own whipped cream topping with it. We sometimes go through as much as 45 gallons of this on the line. The men, with the exception of the turkey, which they get a generous proportion of, and the pumpkin pie that will be served, are allowed to take as much as they want to eat. Well, I'm John Gacy. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa.
And you're a man of some authority here. What is your title?
Well, I'm first cook in the kitchen, and I run the morning meal and the afternoon meal in the kitchen.
John, how long have you been here?
I've been here now a year and about 2 weeks.
It was 30 years ago that infamous serial killer John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection.
He had a young 28-year-old attorney who was against the death penalty and tried to prevent his death.
That attorney has now written a book about it. Sylvia joins us with details.
Don and Scott, she's someone we all know well. Our legal analyst here at Fox 32, Karen Conti. The John Wayne Gacy story continues to intrigue people today. If you're not familiar, Gacy was given the death penalty after being convicted of torturing and murdering at least 33 young men and burying most of them in the crawl space under his Chicago home. Now, it was in the 70s that Conti says she took on his representation, not to get him out of prison, but to save his life because she is against the death penalty. She spent more than 50 years talking to him in prison and says his personality wasn't what most people might expect.
He was charming, engaging, intelligent, and with me, he was a little soft. And, you know, he had a feminine side, and he talked about cooking, and he talked about gardening. And it was just interesting because that wasn't the Gacy that you think about when you think about a serial killer.
To this day, some of the bodies recovered from Gacy's home have never been identified. One theory that Conti brings up in her book, Killing Time with Gacy, is that she believes there were co-conspirators who were never charged.
And victims who escaped actually said they saw and experienced two men perpetrating these crimes. And they testified that they dug the trenches. There's no way that Gacy got down there and buried those bodies. So my guess is that these co-conspirators helped procure the young men and helped commit the crimes and dispose of the bodies.
Conti says one of those co-conspirators later took his own life. She still believes the death penalty is wrong for anyone, including someone as horrible as John Wayne Gacy, but she wanted to stand up for the other people on death row who might be innocent. Conti says that decision to be his attorney brought death threats targeting her. Now she says she can share this story with a different perspective in hopes it will help others realize when you take on something difficult in your life, it can teach you something about being resilient.
But Gacy's execution does not necessarily mean the case is closed. In 1998, acting on a tip from someone who once saw Gacy digging there at night, police dig up the yard outside the apartment where his mother once lived.
Technicians paced off the yard and driveway of the home where John Gacy's mother once lived and slowly, methodically scanned it inch by inch.
Though this time, police find little more than some marbles in a saucepan. Some connected with the case believe that Gacy's victims may number more than the 33 for which he was convicted.
Cook County Sheriff's Office is one step closer to searching a Northwest Side apartment building where serial killer John Wayne Gacy may have buried bodies or other evidence, a sheriff spokesman said today. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office gave its approval late Friday to the Sheriff's Office's request to obtain a search warrant for the apartment building in the 6100 block of West Miami Avenue, where Gacy's mother once lived and Gacy once worked as a maintenance employee, Sheriff spokesman Frank Bilecki said. Speculation about this property has been out there for many, many years, Bilecki said. This whole Gacy case has taken so many different twists and turns, so being able to close a chapter of it at this property would be nice. The site was previously investigated after a retired Chicago police homicide detective tipped authorities to the fact that he had seen Gacy in the yard with a shovel in his hand at 3 a.m. one morning in the 1970s. That dig, in November 1998, turned up a glass marble and a flattened saucepan, but no bodies, according to Tribune accounts of the Chicago police excavation. Sheriff Tom Dart returned to the Gacy case in 2011 when he exhumed the skeletons of several unidentified victims in the hopes DNA could help identify them. The inquiry led to the identification of one victim, William George Bundy, a Chicagoan who disappeared at age 17. At the time, Dart said detectives assigned to the Gacy investigation were considering a number of other investigative avenues. Last March, the state's attorney's office denied a request from the sheriff's office to reinvestigate the Miami Avenue site, saying the sheriff's office did not have probable cause to obtain a warrant. Sheriff's investigators have gathered more evidence since then, which led to approval from the state's attorney's office on Friday, Bilecki said. Still, any work at the site is likely weeks or even months away, Bilecki said. A judge still must sign off on the warrant, and the sheriff's office will have to enlist the help of the FBI and private companies to search the property, he said. The work will be relatively non-invasive, Bilecki said. Investigators will use devices that scan the ground for anomalies, he said. If any are found, a small hole will be drilled in the ground at that spot, and cadaver dogs will then sniff that spot, he said. We're not going in with backhoes and the whole 9 yards, Bilecki said. We don't expect to be there more than a day. Gacy was convicted of the murders of 33 young men and boys in the 1970s, all but one of them strangled, many of them recovered in his crawl space. He was executed by lethal injection at Stateville Correctional Center, near Joliet, in 1994. What brought sheriff's officials back to the property was that, during the 1998 dig, only 2 spots were excavated even though radar surveys of the property reportedly detected more than a dozen anomalies under the ground. That raised the suspicions of the retired detective who initially tipped police to the Gacy connection, Bill Dorsch. He provided the Tribune a letter from the radar company saying the initial dig was incomplete. In a proper investigation, the letter said, the authorities would have been more willing to excavate any possibility. Dorsch, who retired in 1994 from the Chicago Police Department after 24 years, recalled that one day at 3 a.m., as he came home from work, he saw Gacy with a shovel and they chatted briefly. After Gacy's arrest, he called sheriff's officials with the information about him, assuming officials would investigate the tip and potentially excavate. That apparently did not happen until the 1998 excavation.
Life's still cold.
was known as the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy murdered 33 young men and was executed in 1993. But we're learning the Gacy story may not be over. New details of the investigation have only recently come to light and may show Gacy didn't act alone. 33 years after his arrest, there are still lingering questions about John Wayne Gacy. Terry Sullivan was on the prosecution team.
I felt that from the beginning that there may be loose ends. It was such a huge case, and especially at the time.
The idea of a Gacy accomplice was raised from the beginning by Jeffrey Rignall. He is one of a few people who survived Gacy's attack. He said another man was at Gacy's home the night Gacy raped him. Attorneys Robert Stevenson and Steve Becker have been trying to help families of victims find answers. They've been getting tips from the public, and they've uncovered information that they say shows someone else may have been involved in some of the killings.
There is significant evidence out there that suggests that not only did John Wayne Gacy not operate alone, may not have been involved in some of the murders, and the fact that he was largely a copycat killer.
For this story, we're focusing on two of Gacy's victims, Russell Nelson and Robert Gilroy. September 15th, 1977. Gilroy sends a letter to his girlfriend from a mailbox not far from Gacy's home. Then at 6 p.m. that same day, Gilroy is supposed to meet other kids at a bus stop for a trip to equestrian school, but he never shows up. He was never seen again. But according to Gacy's receipts in court records, Gacy's plane ticket shows he flew to Pennsylvania September 12th and didn't return until the night of the 16th, the day after Gilroy was last seen alive. Could someone have been helping Gacy? Listen to this recording of a phone conversation between Gacy in prison and a friend in Chicago.
Well, I wasn't even in Illinois when 16 of these so-called individuals disappeared.
A month later, October 1977, Russell Nelson disappears. According to testimony from his mother, Russell went to a disco on North Broadway with a friend who was several years older. The friend called the family to say Nelson just disappeared outside the disco, and that he would look for him if they'd send money. He called me 2 or 3 times a week and threatened me for money. He said he was staying down here to look for my son. Russell Nelson's brothers went to Chicago to look for Russell and met with the friend who was asking their mother to send money to help search for Russell. The friend offered Russell's brothers a job with John Wayne Gacy. Russell Nelson's sister-in-law recently told us the family is anxious for answers.
I would like to have a family else is involved in it to brought to justice for what they have done to him. Or it could have been somebody else out there.
And another possible connection to Gacy. It turns out a few months before Russell Nelson disappeared, Gacy did work at a drugstore just blocks from where the friend lived.
I think it tells us that John Wayne Gacy was using other individuals to procure young boys over state lines.
According to Becker and Stevenson, the friend is still alive and now living in another state.
If in fact Gacy had other accomplices or people who knew something that was going on, those people should be brought to justice. It's scary in and of itself that there may be others out there.
There's something else mysterious about the cases of Robert Gilroy and Russell Nelson. While Gacy was known to use a rope and board to strangle his victims, the autopsy reports for Gilroy and Nelson show they died from asphyxiation from suffocation, not strangulation. The report says that each had cloth in their mouths.
They claim that I strangled each and every one of them. Ligature strangulation. Put a rope around their neck and strangled them after they were handcuffed. If that's so, then how come the autopsy reports don't match that? Which tells you there had to be more than one person.
In fact, 13 victims were listed as suffocation. Another serial killer case may offer insight to Gacy's mode of operation. In Terry Sullivan's book, Killer Clown, a detective asks Gacy where he got the idea for the torture board. Gacy replies, from Elmer Wayne Henley. Henley and another boy helped serial killer Dean Corll, whose case has a lot of similarities with Gacy. Corll abducted, raped, tortured, and murdered 28 boys, mostly teenagers, in the early 1970s in Houston. He often used handcuffs and strangled his victims.
They do follow Corll's mode of operation almost identically, and one of the most significant parts about Corll is that he used 2 much younger individuals to assist him in gathering up and luring in his victims.
Nothing as far as killing or recruiting or bringing, we had no evidence of that. We thought about it, but we just never saw any evidence.
Gacy's defense lawyer, Sam Amarante, says he doesn't believe any of it. He says Gacy confessed to everything early on, and after years in prison, began to change his story.
I used to talk to Gacy about maybe somebody else committed the offense. Maybe Gacy was in some sort of stupor or drug state or alcohol state and didn't know what was going on around him. And we sort of would plant a seed in John's brain as to what happened. He would look at us and say, maybe you're right. Maybe that's really what happened.
Becker and Stevenson will be taking their case to law enforcement.
These individuals did end up in Gacy's crawl space. So we're just looking to find out the whole truth about these cases, and we followed these leads to this point.
If these individuals were working with John Wayne Gacy to procure young boys, they should be held to justice.
The scope of the Gacy case is as complex as it is disturbing. And after 3 decades, there are still questions that haunt investigators, as well as the families of victims still looking for answers. Becker and Stevenson say they will be meeting with Sheriff Dart today to discuss their findings. Sheriff Dart says he continues to gather information and follow up on leads pertaining to the Gacy case.
Let's throw it to Jim Ramsey now for a look at the weather. Hey, Jim.
Hi there. We've got the Friday forecaster with us today. This is Adria Henley.
Near 81st in Ashland. Bowling was convicted of aggravated DUI, reckless homicide, and leaving the scene of an accident. Bowling could get 15 years in prison.
We recently told you about 2 lawyers investigating possible accomplices to serial killer John Wayne Gacy. After our story last week, more tips have been coming in, including information about a man in Gacy's inner circle. At the time of the Gacy case, investigators were suspicious that he knew more than what he was telling. Now new information has them taking a second look. John Mowry was a 19-year-old Marine when he disappeared in September of 1977. His friends tell WGN that one of John Wayne Gacy's construction workers moved in with Mowry 4 days before Mowry disappeared. Mowry's friends kept returning to his apartment hoping to find him.
We contacted him trying to find out where John was at, and he'd be upset. He was glad that John was gone. He seemed like he had a little bit of a temper. He would get mad easily. Very odd. We were afraid of him.
One day, the friends say the worker was drinking and smoking marijuana when he made a shocking revelation.
He told us that he knew about a location where there were a bunch of dead bodies that nobody knew about, not even the police, which I remember very clearly because he said this with such a terrible smirk on his face. We left after that and felt that he still knew something about John's disappearance that he wasn't telling us.
During the course of that time, this individual remained at Mowry's house and, in fact, tried to give away Mowry's dog, said he was glad John was gone, and then suddenly disappears himself.
The worker was one of several who had access to Gacy's home office. The worker told investigators he dug trenches in Gacy's crawl space. He said Gacy told him the trenches were for pipes. He claimed he knew nothing about bodies being buried there, but officials were always suspicious. How could he be so close to Gacy and not know? In this audio recording between Gacy in prison and a friend in Chicago, Gacy says many of his workers had keys to the house.
We already know that were involved in the case. David and all had keys to the house. In fact, they used the house when I wasn't in town. And none of them got locked up. Nope, they're still free.
The friend who made the audio recordings has this picture of Gacy's home that Gacy painted in prison. He says the man peeking around the corner is the worker who helped dig the trenches that you can see depicted in the painting. A man who survived Gacy's attack, James Rignall, said another man was in Gacy's home when Gacy raped him. Rignall's description matches that of the worker. Gacy was arrested but never prosecuted, and then Gacy went on to murder 4 more young men. But prosecutor Terry Sullivan says they could never find strong evidence for the worker as an accomplice.
We did have suspicions that at least one was working with him. We couldn't get him to admit it, but he had gotten so far as to be down in Gacy's crawl space. We really couldn't crack him or prove by any scientific evidence that in fact he had anything to actually do with the actual killing.
That worker served time in prison for a crime unrelated to the Gacy case and is once again living in the Chicago area. We're not using his name in this story because he's never been charged in connection with the Gacy case. Attorney Stevenson has met with Sheriff Tom Dart and asked him to reopen an investigation of this case, and the Sheriff's Department says they will look into it. Robin?
Thanks, Larry.
The horrible truth to suburban contractor John Gacy's rambling statements to police last week is becoming more and more evident with each passing day. 6 more bodies unearthed from the basement crawl space of Gacy's Norwood Park Township home today, bringing to 15 the number found there since Friday. Des Plaines and Cook County Sheriff's Police investigators arrived first thing this morning to resume their search. The big white wagon, which has been used to transport bodies from the northwest suburb to the morgue, Fishbein Institute, pulled up early today and stood waiting outside the house while more digging went on inside. Also on the scene, crowds of onlookers, the curious, many of whom have stood the death watch for days. By late today, just about all the hollow spaces in the house had been opened up for the searchers. Floorboards and ceiling panels pried loose and carted out to the huge bin just outside the front door. Most of the attention has been centered on the 30-inch dirt crawl space, similar to one we photographed in a house near Gacy's. This is where 12 of the 13 bodies were buried. Searchers are being hindered by water, which keeps filling in their holes, a water problem which Gacy had used as an excuse to have trenches dug in the crawl space. Employees who did the actual digging said they thought drainage tiles were to be buried, not bodies.
We did make the recovery 6 additional bodies, which brings our count up to 15 at this point in time. 3 of the bodies that have what we would consider strangulation cords or ligatures around their necks.
Now, all these bodies appear to be in the same state of decomposition.
That's something you'd have to ask the doctor. He's apparently qualified than I am.
I would say yes.
How long we've been in? About 15 minutes ago, the sight of familiar body bags being carried from that house today, 6 more in all, bringing the total to 15 found since Friday. Those officers not at the scene are gathering dental records and x-rays of teenage boys missing from the Chicago area since 1974. They're also combing payroll information from Gacy's contracting business and contacting former employees to make sure they're all alive. So far, all are. Adding to our report yesterday that other than the former employees, many victims may have been male prostitutes or homosexuals who came to Gacy's house willingly. Sources tell me today that Gacy used to cruise Bughouse Square, the homosexual pickup point between Clark and Dearborn on Chicago's near North Side, as well as several other Northwest Side bars. For that and other reasons, authorities believe most of the victims came from Chicago, where Harold Thomas, commander of the Police Department Youth Division, today defended the department's record in missing persons cases, telling our Vivian Rosenberg Chicago